I don't think we've talked about lungs, and I don't know what chiropractic has to offer for lung health, but I have this patient who did one of those NutriVal tests. Like you've done
Okay.
NutriVal with Genova,
Yep.
but and they give you like, your vitamins and omega-3, but it also had a toxic elements component to it, because it'll tell you like if you have mercury or whatever, using your urine. Well, she tested positive for methylbutyrate. It's something weird that you would find in pollution. So I was like, oh, okay. Do you work around something that's, like exhaust fumes, or, she goes, well, I commute 40 minutes a day. And I'm like, well, everybody does that, but I literally never see that. I'll see mercury and aluminum and lead before I'll see that. I'm like, this is
and it was definitely methylbutyrate.
It was something like that. I don't remember the exact, it was some word I'd never seen before. So I kept questioning her, like, why am I seeing this when we all live in Houston? We all drive 40 minutes a day to get anywhere. So why is she accumulating? And she wasn't particularly old. She was like maybe in her early 40s. And I'm like, so I kept questioning her, and I'm like, where do you live? And she was like, oh, I live near Channel View. And I'm like, that's why. I was like, it has nothing to do with your commute. You literally live and like somebody says they live in Beaumont or near a refinery, or if you live like, there's like certain places in Houston that are very industrial. And I'm like, you literally breathe this in your front yard.
Right.
So that's what made me start thinking like, and then I went to the gym like a few days later, and we finally started going outside to do water aerobics, and they were wearing masks. And I'm like, why are you wearing a mask outside? And they're like, oh, the air quality is bad today. We checked. And I'm like, who's checking? You're like, I don't normally look to see the air quality. I mean, I've got to get up and go anyway. So, I'm like, well, it is what it is. But this particular, lady, she was an older lady who'd already had cancer and everything. And she's like, oh yeah, I checked because, I think her son has asthma, and they always check because certain days are going to be really bad for him. So I was like, I hadn't thought of that, but yes, there's plenty of days where the air quality is terrible. And I don't think about it, but some people do. So between like, if you live in Channel View, Baytown, Beaumont, Port Arthur, wherever all those, oil refineries are in Texas, or, I was like, oh, so I need to start thinking about that, because that's literally a conversation I need to have with everybody, because your lungs are, they are supposed to get rid of your toxins for you. That's how you exhale plenty of things, but you're inhaling them.
Well, I think, yeah, I agree completely. And I do wonder how much a mask is going to really be beneficial.
True, yeah.
For something like that. That's the first question I have. I mean, maybe peace of mind. And again, if our mind believes something is helping us, that's actually very powerful too, right? So,
or if you have a special filter, I mean, filtering out things is always a good thing. So if you're getting a copper mask, or I used to wear silver impregnated mask or something, I don't know.
There's specific carbon filters, but just a regular medical mask, I mean, they're not going to really filter out some of that. They're not going to really do anything.
Yeah, I don't know. But that's why I asked her, I'm like, we're in the pool. Why do you have a mask on and you're standing millions of miles away from people? But she's like, oh, the air quality is bad. I'm like, whatever. Okay. But still, this was after I'd already had the conversation with the other lady with the stuff, the chemical in her blood, where I was like, I never see that. I've been testing people's mercury and toxic things forever, and I'm like, that's odd for me to see it. So that's why.
Do you remember exactly what it was? Because
that's why I gotta look at. I'm gonna have to. I have to Google the Genova thing. I really should look it up. So it's in Genova, and if I look at one of their stock reports, it'll chemical will be in there.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm just curious, just too, because I'm wondering, and it's very possible it's the air. That's absolutely a possibility.
But there's no way I'll ever really know where it came from. It only tells you what's accumulating in your blood. Like if you have aluminum, I don't know if you got it from tinfoil or your deodorant. I can only know that it's there. So like PDF. So yeah, I don't remember it because I literally never see it. I just happen to remember like that's an odd word, and let me look it up, and then I forgot the word because I never look at that.
It's not one that's common, yeah.
No, it's like I said, I've never seen it, and I've looked at a million of these tests, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. So I have to look at NutriVal. But it was something that clearly was in. I mean, it says, oh, this would be in like gas exhaust. It was a byproduct of gasoline.
Oh, got it. So it's
So I
specific to
knew
FMR.
what
That's
it,
why I
I
was.
mean, I knew where it came from, but I still had not seen it. FMV
Yeah, no,
plasma.
it's definitely very toxic down there. So I know, um, I guess the question is, what can you do?
Right. And
Um,
that's why I had to go through things with her. Like, it's like you're not gonna, I'm not gonna suck out your lungs. I mean, you can even have air filters in your house, but you're gonna walk outside and you can't have an air filter outside. So the first thing I told her, I was like, okay, you're in your car 40 minutes a day. They have diffusers for your car. At least put
mhm,
something healthy that you're breathing. Breathe eucalyptus on the way to work, breathe peppermint. So we looked up all these
right,
different essential oils that help
that
with,
are cleansing.
yes,
Mhm,
there are certain ones that are specifically known to help with like COPD and lung cancer and reactive airway disease. So I'm like, she's of course concerned about lung cancer. And I'm like, there's a lot of respiratory diseases. Number one on my list is not lung cancer because it's very rare. It's the most worrisome, but it's rare. But I think that having COPD and walking around with an oxygen tank for 20 years is also worrisome. And that's actually a more likely thing that will happen, is that, your lungs will become weaker. You're going to be easier to catch a respiratory infection and be worse off. So you want to rehabilitate your lungs before
mhm,
something like that happens, so that a healthy lung isn't going to get every disease, but an unhealthy lung can get diseases.
right,
So we want to,
right.
do that. So that was, what do I think?
Well, I mean,
Nutribel.
we're made to detox the environment.
Yes.
Now there's a point where we're overloaded when our toxins are overloading our ability to detox, obviously. Um, so it is an interesting thing to think about. I guess, living in Houston, I mean, we're nothing like California, where you like fly in and there's literally a layer of smog that you can see, or New York when I don't know, if you like fly in, you can literally see the layer. It's unbelievable. Um, for some reason, I think Houston is a little bit more spread out and maybe closer to some of those refinery areas, but that is a good question. What can you do regularly? I think the essential oils is a great
One
idea.
thing, because what else can you breathe? I mean, you
know,
could inhale iodine. Some people are nebulizing iodine. Could you nebulize silver? Sure. Could you? I mean, there's certain
colloidal
things, but you would
silver.
you would want to like start deliberately nebulizing things. To me, putting a diffuser even while I sleep at night, or a diffuser in my car while I drive, seems it's easier for me than
Yeah,
sticking nasal
then
sprays up my nose
nebulizing
or
into the
nebulizing.
nest. Right.
But still,
Right.
and then like my friend's a truck driver. So actually a few weeks ago, I saw a guy who's a truck driver who does have some sort of cancer. It's not lung cancer, but I was like, oh, you're a truck driver, so you're around diesel fuels. And he goes, no, I'm inside with, I was like, but you still walk through the yard where there are trucks running and you're breathing in a different amount of diesel fuel than the rest of the planet. So I'm like, you have been exposed to diesel fuel, and that is known. Truck drivers are known to have more problems with, lung health because
Yeah.
they're around diesel fumes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm gonna find it any minute now. I'm gonna get to that page.
Exhaust. Yeah, that's really good. Very interesting. Yeah, I think about,
Oh, do you know what? Do you
obviously
know
you
why
can
I never see it?
filters.
Because here, so in their toxic elements, it just lists lead, mercury, arsenic, and cadmium. And hers
Mm-hmm.
popped up something weird that I've never seen before, because it normally isn't on the test. She just happened to have something so high that they
Added.
reported it. Because like I said, I
Oh, wow.
I that's why I read it all day long and I've never seen it, because they only report out lead, mercury, arsenic, and cadmium, but they happen to report something in her that I had never seen. And it's not on their sample. Like when I did it, it
Oh,
didn't
okay.
report. It's not a normal report thing. So that's why I'm like, I don't remember what it was, because she's the only test I've seen it on, and I'd have to remember her name,
Isn't that
which I
fascinating?
do. I'm gonna have to go and look it up like when I get to back to that office.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I'm like, it's weird, and I'll put it up in the video, but it was just a weird name. But I know it comes out of exhaust because we Googled it together, and I'm like, this is, it's coming from
So
gasoline
common.
exhaust. But like I said, she's like, I'm not in my car that much. And I'm like, where do you live? I mean,
Well,
and it took me a while to question her before I even thought to ask her that. I'm like, wait a minute, you live in Houston. I just assumed, you live in Sugarland or the Woodlands or whatever. But then she was like, no, I live, she's out there, Baytown, Channelview. And I'm like, that's why you live in a
well, and that's a
strange
possibility, but
place.
you kind of wonder too. They're changing out the air conditioners to this new Freon, and the old one
Yeah,
is like toxic. I wonder if she's got like a slow leak of that potentially in her house. Yeah,
could
I don't know.
be.
just some different things to think about. It could be, but
yeah, because we all might have things in our house. I don't even know what to look for, what to tell people to do. Like, do you call an air conditioner guy and say, give me the least toxic stuff? Or we get our house super insulated. And a lot of people say when your house is super insulated, there's things in that insulation that actually reduce the air quality in your home. You're insulated for weather, but you're not insulated. You know, you have more junk.
Yeah, exactly. There's more chemicals in the house, right?
Right.
Well, so no, I had to get my AC is probably like 10 years old, and the AC guy, because one of them was low on Freon, so of course it wasn't cooling the house. And so when he came, he was telling me that, well, the old version, and I don't remember the numbers of the different Freon, but he goes, they're no longer even making that because it's very toxic, right? I think, it's toxic to the environment, it's toxic potentially to the person, right? But even the newer version is still a little toxic, right? You don't want to be inhaling it. But if there's like a slow, like a really, really small leak, and he was talking about like there's some things where they get maybe it's a little bit rusted to where it's not really leaking like a lot, but just this very tiny amount. I mean, I don't know. It's a possibility, right? I'm just thinking. The other thing I'm thinking, fumes. Some candles are very, very toxic.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That use a lot of candles that are not, made of like either the soy or there's different bases that are just less toxic than others. Some people leave candles going all the time and they're very toxic, or those little plug-in things that are.
Yes, she had those. She was doing plug-ins. And I told her, I was like, so that's another thing we're gonna stop doing. So
yeah. I mean, so all of those things could potentially add up. That's why I'm like, the chemical would be interesting to find out, to see like, what is it? Is it really just because of the area she's in, or is it something else really going on that's more concentrated in her house?
And we'll never know, but it is definitely something that was found in gasoline and definitely the air if you live. So, but it could have been, it could be in 59 other things that I will never think of. But I mean, but at least we know air and gas. So whatever it is, it was definitely in those things, but it was beautiful. It was a word I've never seen and can't pronounce. And if I don't write it down, I'm never going to be able to pull it out of my head. But I have to go back into her chart and specifically look, because it is not it's not even normally listed in the Nutravel. I don't even know how it got reported. I do not. Like I said, I'd never seen the word before. But I knew what it was. It sounded like a toxic chemical. If I see phthalate or this or that, I'm like, oh, I know where I'm going to look. But it's not like a thing that I would ever test anybody for.
Right.
But yes, it was, but that's what made me start thinking
all the time.
Yeah.
Years ago, those plugins, and I mean, I'd have them going like all over, because I love having my house really good. Not knowing how time, this was like 20 years ago in my old house, like I had them all the time. But you don't realize that, or burning candles, how toxic those things can be.
You probably had them until you started using essential oils. And actually I literally have candles that are 20 years old still in the jar, just for if it ever
electricity goes
right. And literally that's all I have candles for. I have one that's like, that used to be pink and it's white now. It's been here in my room so long it has lost its color.
Yep.
Yeah, so I have candles.
I have a drawer with candles just for that purpose, because obviously it doesn't happen often, but man, those times that we've lost power, it sure is nice to have some candles to just light easily.
Yep. And
although probably creating a toxic environment, like being all cooped up in the house with candles going everywhere, but it's not like we do it that often. So
yeah, and if I have a candle, it's usually because somebody gave it to me as a present. You know how you go to those little women's networking things and people like to give candles or body lotion or whatever. So I have candles from that and I regift them. Like I'll go somewhere, I'm like, darn, I don't have a gift. Oops, candle. somebody's gonna get a deadly candle here because I don't use them. I will regift deadly candle and they'll be so happy, like, yeah, I have a candle. I'm like, okay, you want my Glade plugins too? Because I don't have them. But yeah.
So funny. So yeah, that is interesting to think about that. I know this was years ago, but I can't remember the chemical. It was the same kind of thing, and it was this very found in, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to look it up because it's been years ago. But it was somebody that had something. It was a really high level of this one toxin, and it turns out she was drinking water out of water bottles, but she kept the water bottles like in her trunk.
Yeah.
Always in that really high heat.
Yeah.
And so that level was like super high. And, people don't realize, like, I tell people, I have filter on my house, and I use a stainless steel cup, mug, basically, whatever you want to call it. And that's what I do. So my water's filtered, and I drink basically filtered tap water. I
Right.
hardly ever use those plastic bottles because I'm so concerned. I'm like, it's so hot down here. How long were they stored in some heated warehouse somewhere before they got to the grocery store?
Right.
Even though it's the temperature in the grocery store is reasonable, but
True.
before that, I
But
don't
it's
know.
still been there for a year, at a normal temperature, it could leach out of the water. Yeah. So So
Yep.
a lot of things do come from water. Like I've seen styrene in the blood before, and we have styrofoam containers everywhere. There's not a day people aren't walking around without a styrofoam or plastic container that could have styrene in it. So I've seen that in people's bodies before, and you can't get it. I mean, it's not like you can't get it out, but it's not, once it's there, it's kind of there.
You gotta, yeah.
Yeah, even with her thing, it's like I'm like, what do you do? A metal cleanse? Do you do? I mean, it's never wrong to do charcoal. Charcoal collects a lot of bad things. If you're doing like bentonite clay, maybe that's a good idea too. But like I said, more, I still think that you need to start breathing things into your respiratory system that are healthy for it.
Cleansing.
Right.
Yeah. The low dose peroxide in the nebulizer is
Yes.
really powerful as well.
Peroxide, iodine, and silver. Yeah, those three things, peroxide, iodine, and silver, are things that I would think are good.
Very, very low dose there. So
Right. Right.
Um,
But like I said, the easiest thing is for me to, I have 6 diffusers in my house. So the easiest thing for me to do is to throw some oils into a diffuser and diffuse, because I do have silver in my house. I do have bentonite clay in my house. I do have iodine in my house, but it would be a more difficult process for me to go figure out how to nebulize them than it is for me to.
the mixture.
Right. I mean, it's not difficult.
Right.
If I had, some sort of viral disease, I guess I would figure it out. But I mean, I was perfectly happy with my diffuser.
Yeah.
Plus there's oils that are studied for that, like for COPD, there are certain oils that are good for that.
So which ones do they use? I'm assuming you read on this.
Yeah.
Which ones are good for the COPD? Which oils would you recommend?
I would say, like, I think I wrote a whole little letter about it. I had pulmonary.
I was going to say, you sent me that link, and I was thinking, I need to go do some research on this before we talk, but I just didn't get a chance to do that. So.
I know, because that's why I did it yesterday, because I had thought about it. I was like, oh, finally, I thought about something. Because of the lady. And I was like, that was a new conversation. I don't normally have, I'm a gynecologist, so I don't normally have a conversation about lungs. But
I don't really either.
I know, but this time I did, because I'm like, you know what? We all have lungs. We all live in Houston. Our air quality is always bad. A lot of people do live in Baytown, Channelview, near the oil refineries in Houston. And, that's a lot of people that need to pay attention. And then I have friends who are truck drivers or just drive, are out in the field, or even people who are drug reps who are in their car all day long breathing exhaust. So I'm like, this is a lot of people. So eucalyptus, I already knew eucalyptus was going to be number one. Tea tree, peppermint, all that is like real, lung stuff.
What about thieves?
Well, thieves is a combo, but yes, thieves kills everything. And RC,
that's what I was gonna say. It's good for like bacterial antiviral in the lungs, but is it? I would think.
Oh yeah, because thieves has eucalyptus in it.
Oh, it's got clove too.
Correct. It has anytime I see eucalyptus. And then they also, they make things, RC is respiratory care or respiratory congestion. Well, I don't know. So RC is a specific blend for lungs. Breathe Again is a roll on. So somebody can just have a roll on and play with it all day. And and I always tell people, it's like, you could get the eucalyptus and diffuse it. I would not love to smell eucalyptus all day long. I think by itself, it's not fun. And I don't want to smell like Ben Gay or an old lady. So I was like, I like Thieves and Breathe Again better, just because it's a more complex, nice smell. I could Breathe Again roll on, smells good.
Thieves.
Yes.
Thieves is my favorite.
Yes.
I think just because I don't know why. I'm a big, I don't know if it's the cinnamon. Is there cinnamon in it?
Yes. Cinnamon and clove. Cinnamon, clove, lemon, eucalyptus, and rosemary.
Just love this.
I like the smell of these. Like I said, I could tolerate these. My mother plays with it every day. She loves it. But Breathe Again roll on, I think, smells really good.
Yeah, the breathe again does.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And the Raven and the RC, they're all that, they're minty and pepperminty, but they're not just pure eucalyptus, which I don't hate. But if I walked around smelling like eucalyptus, I don't think it would attract a lot of people. It wouldn't attract the age of men. It might attract some old men to come talk to me, but I don't want, I don't want them.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Too funny. Yeah, no, I do. I like my thieves, but it smells really good. And I always have people ask me, because I use it at the office a lot, the spray, you know, instead, because I don't use all the chemical hand sanitizer crap. I use thieves, and I just use the little spray and like a little spray and rub your hands together. Oh, it smells so good too. So
yeah,
everybody loves that.
But eucalyptus is easy. You could, or any oil is easy because you can always put a drop in a hot bowl of hot water and breathe it in. You don't have to have a fancy diffuser, or you could put it in your little air vent. They have those diffuser air vents that you can use. So you don't need a whole diffuser. But like I said, there's just a lot of different ways to use it.
You can take a drop, and you always, I mean, not put it directly on your skin, but like mix it with a little bit of coconut oil, or even olive oil for that matter. Just put a little under your nose, so you're breathing it. Or
rub it on your chest, or rub it on your back, or you can get a diffuser necklace and put a drop on a little necklace and walk around, but you want something that smelled good.
Cool.
Yeah. Because I have a diffuser. I made Lindsay use a diffuser bracelet when she was taking the bar exam, because then she could just smell, you know, rosemary helps you remember. So she would put, you know, something on her bracelet, like the same thing she studied with. She would breathe again while she was taking her exam and remember different things. Yep.
Great idea.
So yeah, there's a lot, you know, and even lemon and citrus things help your body's lungs, you know, help your lungs. So there was that one.
Peppermint's another one that's always opening up of the sinuses. You know, I guess there's a cleansing property as well. I think, with peppermint. Pulmonary. I know anybody that walks in that's like congested at all, like, here, you know, put a little drop in their hand, make them inhale it, and they're like, wow, it's almost like it instantly opens the sinuses. It's pretty amazing.
Right. And see, a lot of people have asthma, but don't really connect it to their air quality, or, you know, oh, I have allergies, but they don't really connect it to maybe you're breathing something in every day, like the pollution around your house.
Right.
So, you know, so people don't think, or it could be the pollution inside of your house. Maybe your filters haven't been changed in 10 years. Yeah. Right.
I don't think the AC works if the filters aren't changed, does it?
Well, it works, but you're going to be blowing out bad air. Like I know that I've been I don't think I have my filters changed during COVID. So it's probably been 3 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Really?
Maybe.
You know, they make your AC have to work way harder.
Yeah.
If they're not changed.
Unless my mother changed it, but I personally never think about it. She's the one that comes every year and is like, did you I know you didn't, never mind. And she'll call people to do it. So literally, I personally haven't changed them in 20 years. My mother has thought about it.
I have a little reminder because I have the Nest thermostats.
Oh, see, you're fancy.
So,
I don't.
Yeah, it sends me a little notification to change my filters every, you know, so I think it's like every 3 months. I do it a little less frequently in the wintertime just because I'm not running the AC in the system as much. But in the summertime, I really try to stay on top of that just because.
Okay.
I know, I can't remember when it was. My old house, I had waited for a while and my AC was not cooling. And I've had the guy come out and he laughed at me. He's like, yeah, you just need to change the filter.
Right.
It's like it's so clogged up. It can't like work right.
Exactly.
So, it's like, oh, okay. So yeah, that was a long time ago. So I learned early on to make sure I was staying on top of my filters.
Yep. So yeah. So I had to talk to her about like some of the things that could happen. Reduced pulmonary function, allergenic reactions, immune system could be like, damn, I'm fighting pollution 24/7. I never get a break. And that could actually impair your immunity. It's just like smoking. Literally, she does not smoke, but the air quality is so bad that it's almost the equivalent of smoking cigarettes. So that's why people are like, oh, I know people who got lung cancer, but they don't even smoke. I'm like, well, where do they live? They're not living on a mountain where there's no cars. They're living in a city or LA. I mean, I used to live in LA and you could see the pink cloud. We knew we were breathing terrible air.
Right.
Or I've been to Peru where it looks like it's about to rain all the time, but it's not going to rain. That's the freaking exhaust stuff that's up in the air looking like a black cloud, literally a black cloud over which city in Peru? Lima, Peru. The buses had no like emissions quality control, evidently, because it was like black smoke coming out of it, and then it would go to the cloud and it would just stay there forever.
Wow.
So we don't think about, like, here we can't see it. We have emissions controls and the cars are built and they try to filter a little bit, but it's not perfect.
Right. No, it's not. Well, there's so many people too. I saw somebody was joking about, they had a picture of, I don't know if it was Houston or LA, but there's like literally 20 lanes of traffic across, something ridiculous, and all these cars. And then they were saying, and people are worried about cows putting off too many toxins or something like that. And I was like, that's a really good point.
Yeah, methane gas. That's
Yeah.
what cows do, methane, but that's nothing. Yeah, that's negligible compared to our car.
Compared to the cars. Yeah. So I was like, really? So, well, I think so. Something else to think about is breathing exercises for the lungs.
Right. So do you have
That can
people
also be something.
Yeah. Now, does chiropractic have anything to do with it? Like, after you adjust them, do they have more space in their rib cage to expand their lungs? And
Well,
does that
I mean,
help or what?
so yes and no. It's like sometimes I will tell you that sometimes if there's a rib that's kind of out of alignment, or I had a patient recently, he just had an injury where he fell and he had fallen where something hit him right in the rib and he was very bruised. He wasn't able to breathe well because every time he would inhale and exhale, it was very painful. So if there's a rib also just it's basically a little bit out of alignment, it can, it's almost feels like a stabbing pain in that area. So you're not breathing completely, you're not filling up your lungs completely. So sometimes, if that's the case, obviously an adjustment can fix that pretty quickly. The other thing too is if you're out of alignment and you've got any kind of interference, nerve interference, in general, it could affect any of the organs depending on what area is being interfered. Um, so yeah, it's definitely possible. Definitely possible.
Yeah.
To help with that. Now, of course, cleansing the lungs, I think breathing exercises, the diaphragmatic breathing, I think a lot of people don't really breathe properly.
No, we don't.
And teaching people like that deep breathing and how to really, take full inhales, exhale instead of that real shallow breathing, is really, really important for many different things. I mean, obviously for your lung health, but also for stress and heart, blood pressure, all kinds of things, right? So
Yeah.
but I think deep breathing too can actually strengthen the lungs and help you, I guess I want to say cleanse them, if you will. I mean, to really kind of get rid of any kind of excess, stale air, whatever you want to call it, in the lungs. If we're not exhaling properly.
Right.
That's definitely a possibility too.
Right. Or like the only time I'm really mindful about taking a deep breath is if I'm like meditating and they're like deep breath in, breathe in deeply, breathe out. Or if I'm doing yoga, or like I said, if I have an oil and I'm like, oh, let me, inhale this since I've got it, because I've got something now to get into my lungs. So I have a focus point. Whereas just normally sitting around talking or watching TV, I'm not going to be breathing differently. It's just like we don't do that unless we have a, focus.
Right.
But yeah, of course, breathing, it's good to exercise your lungs. It's like we exercise everything else when we want them to work right. And, or even like, what about patting someone on the back and like we do with pulmonary therapy, like when people have respiratory problems, we have people go in and just pat their back so they can cough stuff up.
Oh, interesting.
But I don't know if that works if you're not like coughing stuff up, if
You don't have
we
stuff to
care.
cough up, right?
Yeah, I don't know if just doing that.
I don't know, that's
But of course, it wouldn't be a bad idea to like rub stuff on someone's back. Like, what if I got peppermint and olive oil and rubbed it on their back? Because now it's gonna, like, their lungs are your whole back. Should be your lungs, and it's gonna cross over and start finding its receptors somewhere to go. Yeah. So even air pollution can cause, like, if your lungs are weak and aren't pushing all your oxygen around, that's going to affect your heart. That's going to affect your brain. You're not breathing and getting oxygen to your brain either. So, I mean, it can lead to a lot of other secondary and tertiary health issues that people aren't thinking about. So I'm like, I really have to start telling people about their breathing and lungs and driving to work.
Well, it says, deep breathing, deeper breaths, utilizing the full capacity of the lungs helps cleanse the lungs and provides your body cells with more nourishing oxygen. So yeah, I think the deep breathing is really important. Just even like you say, doing it mindfully a few times a day, not all day, but just really
Yeah, that's why
being intentional about it.
Yeah, that's why if you have like a diffuser bracelet or a diffuser necklace, it'll remind you like, oh, I smell something, let me breathe it in. Or in your car while you're driving to work, you've got something that needs to get into your lungs, so that it would force you to think about it.
Right.
What else would I do? Maybe I'd make a spray and spray it in my shoes. I don't know. It's like, maybe I would, spray it at myself all day. Like, I need to wake up in the afternoon. Let me spray some peppermint at myself. That's easy.
Yeah.
Put peppermint in water and just spray it at yourself.
I know I used to have a rose oil like facial spray.
Oh yeah, those are good for your face.
But it smelled great too.
Oh, speaking of rose oil, so somebody had the Beauty Boost and put it on a mole that had been sitting there for like 10 years, and it like in a month it got like much lighter and flatter and started to go away.
Really?
I'll have to send you the picture, because it might not be on a page that you don't see, but I'm gonna have to send you her picture. Oh. So yeah, speaking of roses, yeah, I was like, I love that. So it says
CBD Beauty Boost.
Yeah, it was the Beauty Boost. It was the Beauty Boost. Yeah. So here it says, super insulated homes have 200% more allergens than homes with traditional and basic insulation.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Well, carpet too is very toxic.
Yeah. Oh, especially the chemicals you put on Scotch Guard and things like that has chemicals in it. So like if somebody does Scotch guarding for a living, they might have toxins in their body because Scotch Guard has some stuff in it. It says there can be 40,000 dust mites in a single ounce of dust. Well, then I've got a million dust mites in my house because I'm sure there's dust. I try to dust, but
I don't even know how to get away from that.
Right? I know.
That's like, I feel like I keep my house pretty darn clean, and
So you clean it yourself with Young Living stuff, or do you have a maid that cleans it with Young Living stuff, or what do you do?
I have somebody that comes and helps. She comes every couple of weeks just to kind of help me stay on top of things, and then of course, we also try to stay on top of things on top of that. It's a never ending. It's like laundry. It never ends.
I know.
Cleaning never ends. So you've got to just always be doing that, right? But yeah, so sweeping, I know with the dogs, which that reminds me, the dogs, now granted, I don't let them run around the house, but, they're in and out, in the back, and they've got their little doggy house in the back, in the back part of my house, right? But still, they're coming in and out, and they're outside running around all day and bring in whatever they bring in. Yeah. So
yeah, there's only so much you can control. Like cigarettes, you can choose to not smoke them, but you must breathe air. And unless you're going to go and drive right now to the mountains, and you're just not going to get away with air. And like I said, even I don't know what mask to tell people to wear 24/7 to filter it out. I'm sure it maybe gets away 20% or 50%. I do not know what kind of mask a person. Well, in China, they all walk around with hospital masks and think that they're doing something because their pollution's terrible. And you go to China, everybody has a face mask on. And this was way before I went to China 10 years ago. And that masks are normal there. Me walking around with no mask, they're probably like, what is wrong with her? Does she not know what the air says? Yeah.
That's funny. I had somebody tell me that there was another reason that they wear them as well that had nothing to do with the pollution.
Oh, why do they wear them?
Because there's cameras everywhere.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
They do it to kind of not be so, because it's so strict that if you get caught jaywalking, they'll send you a ticket because they have cameras everywhere. So and they get points taken off, or there's all kinds of stuff like that. It's such a different world. One of my patients is actually, her family's from there, and she goes and visits, usually every year up until COVID. She hasn't been for a few years, but I think the last time she went was the summer before COVID. So it was 2019. But I remember her telling me, she's like, yeah, they all wear their masks because she goes, we'd be riding our bikes and like riding all over the place because we can't really get in trouble. We're not from there, but our friends have to be really careful because they get in trouble.
That would
for
be
all the littlest things.
Yeah, that would be a second advantage to have the masks on. But yeah, no, yeah, when we were visiting there, yeah, that makes sense. But they do have bad air, so I can see how maybe wearing a mask can make them at least feel better about this air because it's visibly bad air.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, it's like you can see
it. Did you notice So when you were there, did you notice that you felt any differently or
No,
any breathing issues or anything
no,
like that? No.
because I was only there for 10 days, and plus I used to live in LA, so I'm sure my lungs were not impressed.
You're like, oh, it's like home.
Yeah, right. And I definitely think LA, I don't know. And they've tried to pass so many laws trying to get the pollution better. It's just so many cars on the road at all times. And I'm like, you're right by the water. Why hasn't it blown away? But no, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And Houston's been cloudy for a long time. And I'm like, I keep thinking it's about to rain, but it could be the pollution and the air quality.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's been cloudy for like a month or two.
It seems like nice today. It's a really nice day today.
Yeah, but at my house, it's still kind of overcast. You know what I mean? It's just.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I haven't
It's
seen like
really
a clear blue sky in a long time.
Oh. I knew Wednesday just happened to be my birthday this last week, but I went outside that morning to feed the fish, and it was like, oh my God, this is like the most perfect day ever. It was like no humidity, just clear and sunny, and I'm like, and I gotta go spend the day in the office.
Oh, you went to work? Why did you take the day off?
Oh, because it was Wednesday, and it's just my schedule, my routine. I didn't want to.
Oh, you had nothing special. Yeah. Plus everybody was working. So who's going to entertain
everybody
you?
else is working. Yeah. My son was at school. Everybody else was at work. So, so no, it's no big deal. We did, we went to dinner, this weekend and stuff, but no, it was just funny because I remember it specifically because I remember that was my birthday. I was like, what a perfect day for my birthday. Too bad I can't really sit out and enjoy it all day, but it was so pretty outside.
Yeah. And the funny thing is we never really pay attention to our respiratory health until we cannot breathe.
And that is very true.
We really don't think, we think about our skin. Let me make sure it doesn't wrinkle one day. And we think about, a lot of different things, but we just don't think about breathing until we can't. When we should have, like, at least the person I saw, we just happened to be there for routine stuff and hormones, and she doesn't have any breathing problems yet, but at least now that we saw that, we know, okay, get rid of the plugins, they're out, and here's your oils. And now, we'll keep finding new things to help her with her lung health. Right. And like I said, I've been doing more diffusing just because of the whole pandemic and all that. So I'm like, well, so I'm always diffusing or breathing something, but that's because I'm trying to do something else, not even about my lungs. It just happens to help my lungs.
I just do my diffusing most of the time because I like the way it smells.
I know. See, because you were used to.
I know there's health benefits to it too now that I am using healthier options versus my old. I don't even know what they were that I used to use years ago. It might have been like Bath and Body Works stuff. That was years ago, but
right, because they have nice smelling stuff.
Those things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to love those things.
But yeah,
I
was never a candle person, and I never used plugins. And as a matter of fact, now if I go into someone's house and they have plugins, I will become congested, and I'm normally never congested. I don't have those. But now I'm like, now that I'm pure, my body's very sensitive. Yeah, now my body's very sensitive to those things. I walk in, I'll be like, do you have a plug-in? They're like, how do you know? It won't even be in the same room. And I'll be like, my nose knows I can't breathe, and I can normally breathe. So please get rid of it. Trash it.
It's not good for you, I promise.
I know.
That's funny.
Yep. I'm like,
I do enjoy candles, but I've learned, I like my, obviously my oils, but I do enjoy candles. There's just something about the flickering. Now I have one of my diffusers, I have it set to where it like flickers, almost looks kind of like a candle.
Oh, because I have one that turns different colors of the light, but it's real bright. No, like I said, I only like candles when there's no power and I have no choice but to have it on. I'm like, oh, now it's kind of romantic, like a fireplace. It's calming, like a fireplace.
Yeah, I like the candles. I like the flickering fire. About which ones I buy now, so we're trying to be more conscientious of that.
Now, are you doing like, I was going to say special candles? Like, do you use a soy candle or you really don't use them until you have to?
Yeah, the ones that I found, no, I found some, let me see which one. This one I found recently. It's actually a lady in Houston, and she makes them herself, which I thought was very cool.
We could make our own. Let's have a class.
Yeah, that's a good point. That would be kind of fun. Let me see what if it has ingredients on it. But no, she was telling me she uses essential oils in it.
Right.
And then
because that's a good project
I
to.
want to say, let's see. I want to say it's like a soy base. I can't remember what she said is her base,
That's
but it's something that's not, and then she uses like, instead of typical wicks, she uses these like wooden looking wicks. So it's just different. It's not
less
your standard. Then the other one, same thing, but they kind of are handmade, and they use, let me see if she has on here. Yeah, wick is organic and lead-free, 100% natural, organic soy. Yeah, I guess they mostly use a soy wax, but they smell amazing. But they use soy wax, and then they use actually essential oils mixed with a wax. So they're pretty healthy. This one is really cool because you buy the candle, and then once you burn it down, you can go in, and once you buy her container, you can go and just pay for refills, and she'll just refill it with wax for you. It's like, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, because I looked that up before. That's why I knew about it, because I was like, I wonder if there's a non-toxic candle. And I looked up soy candle, and you just buy soy wax and make your own candle, and which is never going to happen.
Yeah,
I don't know. I might.
All these really nice blends of, they smell really good. So no, I don't know. I'm kind of funny about that. I like, every once in a while, I just like the candles going, just because it just gives a little different atmosphere in the house.
Yeah, but if you have a nice safe soy candle, I mean, if I used to make my own deodorant, make my own lip gloss, it's probably just like making a giant lip chapstick, because I made my own little giant
basically
lip gloss. It's a giant lip gloss with a wick. So I'm like, I can do that.
And you just have to be careful with the wicks too, because some of the wicks can be also
toxic,
not very good for you. So, but like you said, it's a process over time of replacing things little by little.
Yeah.
And just when you use something, and that's why I tell people too, with some of their supplements, even though most of them are some of the ones that they buy, like especially drugstore crap, which it basically is. So might as well just be judgmental about it, right? But I tell people, it's like, like, let yourself finish, because you're actually adopting you do have a good habit of actually taking something regularly, at least. So go ahead and finish that. And when you finish it, replace it with something a little bit better. So you're constantly just improving. Now, some people can afford to just toss it and start all over. And, some people's health can't afford not to just toss it and start all over. But for a lot of people, it's like, make it a gradual process. So you don't feel like you're just,
I know, because you and I have been doing this. I mean, I've been doing things for like, since I was, at least 15 years, and you've been doing it for almost the same amount of time. So every year or 6 months, we can be like, hey, let's make candles, you know what I mean? But some people,
like, oh, here's a healthier version of this.
Yeah.
Version of this, right?
But some people are trying to get to where we are, but in like a month. And I'm like, well, that would be hard, because you can do 15 years worth of work in a month, but it would be hard. It would overwhelm you, and you might be like, get frustrated and give up, and you don't want to do that.
It could be very expensive too,
it would
because just imagine, from everything from detergent to hair care, skin care, all these different things. I mean, just all of a sudden, like, buy everything at once. I mean, that can be pretty costly. Now, again, with some people, if their health conditions warrant it, it might be worth like just doing it.
Oh yeah. If somebody comes to me and they have like, cancer or an autoimmune disease or something, really bad, I'm like, well, today's the day, and you got to, 15 years worth of stuff is about to happen in 15 days. But, in general, a lot of people aren't at that point and can do it in a way that's kind of more natural for them and easier and affordable.
Right.